I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. Overall, the mid-rounds of your fantasy football drafts here in 2025 are gonna suck. Now sure, there's a few gems out there, but if you do not know what to do between the rounds 6 and 10, better luck next year. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Hopefully everyone is doing well out there today. Now, you see so much fantasy content on social media that's really built around how great the mid-rounds are. And while that sounds good and all, and it gets likes on social media, it's a damn lie, because there are not a lot of great picks at the running back and wide receiver position between rounds 6 and 10. Now, I'm sure I'm going to have people in the comment section saying, yeah, well, what about this guy or this guy or this guy? Cool, that's great. There's like 12 guys, 12 out of 60. For all you non-math scholars, that's not a very good percentage. So let's go ahead and look at the running backs and wide receivers that currently have an ADP here in the middle rounds, and you can kind of see what I mean here when I say there's not a lot of great options. For the running back position is where we'll start first. TreVeyon Henderson. I don't hate the kid at all. I actually love TreVeyon Henderson, but he's going to be splitting touches with Ramondre Stevenson. Sorry, not sorry. How about RJ Harvey? I've talked about him numerous times this offseason. Love RJ Harvey. Love the future of him in Denver. But then they went out and signed J.K. Dobbins, so we may see a little bit more of a slower start from Harvey than what we wanted. How about Caleb Johnson, another rookie running back? If he was the only guy there in Pittsburgh, maybe I like him a little bit more, but with Jaylen Warren still in this backfield, he's going to be taking away volume, and that will hurt the overall upside of Caleb Johnson. Then we got Brian Robinson Jr. of the Washington Commanders, never played a full season, plus another guy splitting touches in this backfield with Austin Eckler, and also has a quarterback that runs a ton as well. We then have Travis Etienne in Jacksonville, but who knows what that split is going to look like in that backfield, especially with Tank Bigsby. How about Tyrone Tracy of the New York Giants? Not a bad option, but Scat is going to be good enough to vulture touches in this backfield. Then we have Jaylen Warren. We already talked about his split with Caleb Johnson. Quinshawn Judkins, another rookie running back, but the dude just got arrested. What's his season going to look like? We then have Najee Harris. He's literally been an NFL Iron Man. Then went to LA and tried to blow himself up with a firework because they went out and drafted Omarion Hampton, who's going to see close to 50% of the touches. Then we got Jordan Mason in Minnesota. He was good in San Francisco, but so is every other San Francisco running back over the last decade when it comes to fantasy football. You may not like it, but Aaron Jones is still going to get the bulk of the volume in this backfield. Then we have Ramondre Stevenson. Yep, you guessed it, splitting with TreVeyon Henderson. We talked about that earlier. Then Javonte Williams, a pass-heavy offense. He's going to be splitting with Miles Sanders and has been really inefficient since racking up multiple major injuries. How about Zach Charbonnet playing second fiddle to Kenneth Walker once again in 2025. Then we got Cam Skattebo, who a lot of people are loving in New York, and he's going to have manufactured touches. But the volume starts off the year with Tyrone Tracy. However, Cam has looked good in camp. He's going to be in a future episode, so be sure to stay tuned. Then we got Tyjae Spears. Now, he is well behind Tony Pollard because he can't stay healthy and can't stay on the field, and that's a problem. But then there's three other guys. These three, I really don't mind in 2025 in the mid-rounds. Aaron Jones being the first one. A lot of people want to write off Aaron Jones because of Jordan Mason. To me, Jordan Mason is a little bit unproven still. And I'm not so quick to go out and just write off a 1,500-yard, 7-touchdown running back from just last year. They're going to be having a quarterback who's starting for the first time, and typically, when that happens, the running game is really relied upon. Could Jordan Mason take away some goal line touchdowns? For sure. Does that mean Aaron Jones is a nobody? No, absolutely not. How about Isaiah Pacheco of the Kansas City Chiefs? Should be back and healthy this year, plus the overall health of the receiving game is better in 2025, which means less defenders in the box because there's more options on the outside. I think Isaiah Pacheco has a chance to bounce back this season. And then Tony Pollard, we mentioned him earlier. He may not be sexy. He may not rack up a ton of touchdowns in this Tennessee offense, but Tennessee is going to be improved in 2025, giving him more touchdown opportunities, and with the volume that he sees and the constant injuries to Tyjae Spears, Tony Pollard is another mid-round guy I don't mind. And that will do it for all the running backs going between round 6 and 10 as of right now. So now let's transition to wide receivers. We got Jalen Waddle in Miami. Only one fully healthy season in his career. We know there's some risk there with Tua and his health, and Miami has more pass-catching depth this year than they have for like the last decade. Then we got Chris Olave in New Orleans. Who the hell is going to throw him the football in New Orleans? That's a problem. Chris Godwin, he's coming off a major injury, and this offense is loaded with pass-catching weapons. Jordan Addison in Minnesota, dude got a wet, reckless charge. Now that sounds pretty impressive, but he still faces a suspension, so there's question marks surrounding him. How about Jawan Jennings? Totally unproven as a team's wide receiver one, and a little bit disgruntled this offseason already. Then we got Jaden Reed. Now Green Bay has a passing attack that spreads the ball around so much, and we saw that last year with their lack of overall volume commitment to Jaden Reed. Same thing gonna happen this year. They've only added more options with rookie Matthew Golden. Then we got Stephon Diggs. He's coming off a torn ACL. He looks good in camp, but can he keep that momentum going with some of the younger guys that they've already brought in on that offense? How about Ricky Pearsall? He's a first-round talent. He just needs to stay healthy and on the field, something he hasn't been able to do as of late. Then Josh Downs. There's quarterback questions in Indianapolis. Is it Daniel Jones? Ooh, I hope not. Is it Anthony Richardson? Ooh, I kind of hope not too. There's not a lot of warm fuzzies in this Indianapolis Colts passing offense. Now, if I had to pick one, it is Josh Downs, but then we also have right behind him Michael Pittman as well, who's kind of just completely fallen off the face of the earth the last couple of years. But with the questions at the quarterback position here, a lot of red flags in Indianapolis. And then we got Brandon Ayuk. He can't stay healthy. He's already a question mark entering the season, and he wasn't exactly setting the world on fire after getting a contract extension last year. But just like the running back position, there are still a few players that I will consider drafting here in the mid-rounds at the wide receiver position. Calvin Ridley being one of them. Cam Ward is a huge upgrade to this passing offense, and he may lock on to Calvin Ridley about 175 times this year. Then we got George Pickens in Dallas. Getting George Pickens away from Pittsburgh and Arthur Smith is going to be an absolute blessing to the fantasy gods. Then you add in the fact that Dallas is going to have to throw the ball a butt ton because their running game is going to suck. George Pickens could pop off this year. How about Travis Hunter in Jacksonville? Yes, somewhat of a 50-50 split between offense and defense. But we could see Travis Hunter in and out of the slot quite a bit when he's on offense, and I love that potential mismatch for those big plays. Then we got Roma Dunze in Chicago. With Ben Johnson calling the offensive plays, Roma Dunze is going to have an opportunity for a huge season alongside DJ Moore. We just saw it last year in Detroit in Ben Johnson's offense with Jamison Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown, Roma Dunze in line for a huge ceiling. Then we got Jerry Jeudy in Cleveland, the top target in Cleveland. And with veteran quarterback Joe Flacco kind of leading the way as of right now, we could see a lot of targets going the way of Jerry Jeudy. Same thing for the next guy on the list, Jacoby Myers in Las Vegas. The clear-cut wide receiver one in Vegas, and now with an upgraded quarterback in Geno Smith, he could see some decent volume. How about Khalil Shakir in Buffalo? Now, if he could stay on the field for a full 17-game season, the guy's probably going out there and getting you 1,100 yards. He's the binky of Josh Allen. We just need to keep him healthy. Then we got Deebo Samuel in Washington. A lot of people are still sleeping on Deebo Samuel. Adding him to this Washington offense with Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury calling the plays, we could see a resurgence of Deebo in 2025. Then Cooper Kupp as well. Is he washed? No, probably not, but he isn't what he used to be in that Triple Crown season either. Now he gets to go back to his home state though and play in Seattle with new quarterback Sam Darnold, probably going to be one of his top targets as well. Now if you want even more info on how to straight dominate your fantasy football league here in 2025, you need to get yourself a draft guide. It's got rankings and sleepers and breakouts, injury analysis, offensive line rankings, and so much more. All you need to do is head over to tfhdraftguide.com and get yours right now. But there's another way to get one. We have once again worked out a deal with our sponsors over at Underdog. So if you head over to Underdog Fantasy, create a new account, use the promo code HEADLINERS when you do so, then just make your minimum deposit and enter a contest. It can be a player pick'em, it can be a best ball draft. Once you do that, we will then send you a free 2025 fantasy football draft guide, so maybe you can draft a better team and increase your best ball chances at walking away with some cash. But you're also going to get a first-time deposit bonus of up to $1,000 in bonus funds. This is a great deal that you do not want to miss out on. Now, there are links to everything down below in the description, so be sure to head over there as soon as this video is over. But okay, let's go ahead and take a look at how we should be handling these mid-rounds of your fantasy football drafts in 2025. Now, personally, by the end of round 5, I would prefer to have 3 running backs and 2 wide receivers, and let me tell you why. Number 1, there are more wide receiver options later that have that 1,000-yard upside. And this isn't just in the middle rounds, but even in the later rounds as well, there are more wide receivers with value than there are running backs. If you grab 2 higher-end wide receivers in the first 5 rounds, you're drafting all these wide receivers later as bench depth, and you're not overly dependent on them in week 1. Give me 2 high-end studs, and then let me fill in my bench with a mixture of safety and upside at the wide receiver position. All right, number 2, I want a running back in my flex position if possible. You cannot score fantasy points if you do not touch the football. I want to try and lock in close to 20 touches a week in my flex spot if I can. Having almost 60 touches between your 2 running backs and your flex spot is huge on a weekly basis. In order to do that, you gotta grab 3 running backs before the mid-round void. This also prevents me from having to play mid-round roulette, trying to find a running back that I can rely on starting weekly. I would rather the mid-round guys, once again at the running back position, be some bench depth for my team. Number 3, the potential upside of mid-round tight ends is pretty close to the same as the early round tight ends. There are only 4 tight ends being drafted inside the first 5 rounds. The potential of tight end 4 isn't much different than that of tight end 9, so waiting makes a little bit more sense. Now, here are the tight ends currently inside the mid-rounds of your fantasy football draft. We got TJ Hawkinson, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, David Njoku, Evan Ingram, Tucker Kraft, Dalton Kincaid, and Jake Ferguson. Now, as of right now, there are 4 guys in this group that I'm kind of going to highlight for 2025. The first one being David Njoku in Cleveland. And we've seen David Njoku and Joe Flacco in Cleveland in the past. We've seen them put up huge numbers. And outside of Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku is going to be the next big option in this passing offense. He can rack up receptions and volume, and he also has that big playability. Kind of similar to Evan Ingram, who's now in Denver. Now, he suffered some injuries here as of late, but heading into 2025, he is in the perfect system to succeed. He's got a capable quarterback in Bo Nix. He's got an offense with not a lot of big-name weapons that are going to draw away a target share. Evan Ingram is a red zone monster, and Sean Payton has really utilized the tight end position in the past. They made a conscious effort to go out and get him this offseason, and they're going to use him in 2025. Then Dalton Kincaid in Buffalo, a little bit banged up right now, so we need to pay attention to that going forward, but he is one of the most efficient tight ends even last year. In a disappointing year, his per-touch metrics were not bad. If the volume returns, we're going to see the return of a tight end 1 in Dalton Kincaid. And really, if I'm betting on a later round tight end, I want to at least choose a guy in one of the better offenses in the NFL, Buffalo being one of those offenses. And then lastly, Jake Ferguson in Dallas. Now, we know he just got extended, he got paid, but there's also going to be a lot of defensive attention going the way of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. We could see Jake Ferguson rack up a ton of receptions in 2025. Now, he may not have huge yardage, but inside the red zone and racking up receptions is where he's going to live this season. And at the point that you can get him in fantasy football drafts, it makes him a great option in the mid-rounds. But all right, on to number 4. Every year, the team that nails the mid-round quarterback has an overall better chance at winning their fantasy football championship. Over the last few years, waiting on quarterback and getting mid-round guys like Baker Mayfield, Jaden Daniels, and Jared Goff has been a huge boost. Grabbing guys like that a little bit later allows you to load up on those higher-end running backs and wide receivers early. Look at the quarterbacks we have inside the mid-rounds here this year. We got Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, Bo Nix, Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, Brock Purdy, Caleb Williams, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, Drake May, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, and CJ Stroud. Now, there are a ton of great options right here. I think Patrick Mahomes is in line for a bounce back year if he can have his wide receivers actually healthy this year, unlike last year. Baker Mayfield has arguably the best overall wide receiving group in the NFL. We saw him put up close to MVP type numbers last year. He's in a great position. Bo Nix coming into his second year, really understanding this offense, and now they've added Evan Ingram, an additional red zone threat for him. He could be huge, especially with the rushing upside. How about Caleb Williams? Yes, I know he's struggled somewhat in camp, but stop worrying about everything that you're seeing in camp in shorts. I saw an interview a few years ago. I wish I could remember the player. I don't right off the top of my head, but they talk about how they try to do things differently in camp. This is where they mess around with things to see what works and what doesn't. So I'm not going to take a few clips of some bad throws and totally say the guy's going to suck for the season. I have more faith in not only him, the player, but the coach and Ben Johnson and his offensive game plan. Plus, we know he's got a ton of weapons to throw the football to. Then you got Dak Prescott. He was a top 5 fantasy quarterback a couple years ago with only CeeDee Lamb. Now we're giving him George Pickens as well. He's got a great opportunity to bounce back. Jared Goff has been one of the most consistent fantasy quarterbacks over the last few years in Detroit. And then Trevor Lawrence, another guy that's going to benefit from the improved offense overall. New head coach Liam Cohen has been dialing it up in Tampa Bay the last couple years, and now he's setting Lawrence up to succeed in 2025. They moved up for Travis Hunter. They brought in Diami Brown, and they already have Brian Thomas Jr. They could absolutely uncork a big-time offense in Jacksonville this year as well. So, alright, with all that being said, follow these steps to crush your mid-round draft strategy. You need to determine which quarterback and tight end you want to target this season. Which one excites the eggplant, if you know what I'm talking about. Then, you need to try to figure out around what round those guys are going to be drafted in. But you also need a backup plan just in case. If you've played fantasy football at all, you know that draft plans tend to go out the window because players are out there drafting players too early. So be sure to have a backup tight end and quarterback option that you want to target this season. Then, whatever 3 rounds you have left in your mid-round game plan, fill them with 1 running back and 2 wide receivers. Now, if you do that, by the time you hit round 11, you are on full-on upside watch. You're out there drafting the best players available. That should be your mindset because you're already going to have a quarterback, a tight end, 4 running backs, and 4 wide receivers. Then, from that point on, it's all about finding those late round sleepers.